the pattern that fed the tree. The terrace was older than the house. Everyone knew that, even if no one said it out loud. The repeating geometric floor, sharp, symmetrical, almost hypnotic, had no cracks, no chips, no history anyone could remember. It simply was, like it had been placed there before the idea of the house ever existed. And in the center of it, a tree. Too large for the space it occupied, too heavy, its trunk twisted like muscle under skin, dense with fine, restless lines that seemed to shift if you stared long enough. Its branches didn't reach for the sky, they drooped downward, thin and deliberate, draping the terrace like strings of something almost alive. Each strand carried tiny clustered growths, not quite leaves, not quite fruit. They pulsed faintly in the half-light, as if breathing. At first, people thought it was beautiful. They would stand on the patterned floor and look up, letting the hanging branches brush their shoulders, their faces. It felt calming, like being touched by something that knew exactly how to soothe you. That's how it started. A gardener was the first to notice the change. He said the patterns on the floor were wrong, not broken, just different. The triangular repetitions seemed slightly deeper one morning, as if carved further in. He ran his hand across them and felt warmth, a low, quiet warmth, like something sleeping just beneath. He didn't come back the next day. Then others began to notice the branches were lower. Not by much, just enough that you had to tilt your head differently to walk beneath them. Just enough that they lingered longer against your skin. And sometimes, when no one was looking directly at them, they swayed not with the wind, but with intention. One night, someone stayed. They said they wanted to sketch it, capture the impossible detail of the trunk, the way the lines spiraled endlessly into themselves. They sat cross-legged on the terrace floor, pencil scratching quietly, surrounded by that perfect, repeating geometry. Hours passed. At some point, they noticed the floor wasn't hard anymore. It had softened, not visibly, but when they shifted their weight, it gave slightly, like pressing into tightly packed earth. Then something warmer. Then something wet. They stood up too quickly. The sound came next, not from above, but below. A slow, thick movement. The patterns beneath their feet shifted. Lines separating, edges widening, triangles stretching open just enough to reveal darkness underneath. And inside that darkness, movement. The branches dropped all at once. Not full. Thin tendrils wrapped around arms, neck, waist. Not tight enough to hurt, just enough to hold, to guide, to keep them in place. The floor split open, not in cracks, but in perfect geometric precision, each shape unfolding like a puzzle being solved in reverse. Beneath it was no soil, no roots, just a mass. A writhing, pulsing mass of pale, root-like forms tangled together, and threaded through them, bones, old ones, fresh ones, some still, attached to things that hadn't fully disappeared yet. The trunk above trembled, and then it opened. Not split opened like flesh, remembering it was once meant to part. The tight lines of bark peeled back in slow, deliberate spirals, revealing layers underneath that looked less like wood and more like muscle. Veins pulsed through it, carrying something thick and dark. The hanging clusters burst, softly at first, then all at once they didn't contain seeds. They contained teeth, hundreds of them. Small, human, packed together in wet, fibrous sacs that ruptured under their own weight, spilling downward in a quiet ticking rain against the shifting floor. The branches tightened. The terrace beneath finished opening, and the person, the one who stayed to draw, finally understood. The pattern wasn't decoration. It was a mouth. The entire terrace folded inward with a wet, grinding sound. There was no scream, not really. Just a sharp intake of breath that never made it back out. Then silence. Morning came like nothing had happened. The terrace was whole again, the pattern flawless, the tree calm, but its branches hung just a little lower. And among the clustered growths, if you looked closely, there were new shapes forming. Not quite leaves, not quite fruit, small, rounded, with faint impressions of fingernails pressing. from the inside. If you ever find a place that feels too perfectly patterned, too quiet, too patient, don't admire it for too long. Some designs aren't meant to be seen, they're meant to finish closing. See you Tuesday.